Wala pa rin po tigil ang pag-ulan sa Butuan City.
Sa ngayon ay patuloy pa rin ang pagtaas ng tubig sa Agusan River.
Hindi pa rin humuhupa ang baha sa malaking bahagi ng Butuan City.
Umapaw ang Agusan River, halos 5,000 pamilya ang inilikas.
Butuan City is still under Code Red Flood Alert Level 3.
Mahigit 200 pamilya naman ang nasa siyam na evacuation center.
Butuan has a natural double-edged sword in terms of its geography. On one hand, its beautiful sights make it a great place to live in and visit, and on the other hand, the same nature makes the city vulnerable to natural disasters such as floods and typhoons. So, being close to not only earthquake-prone areas, but also the coast, which makes it occasionally be in the path of horrible typhoons. These calamities are so harmful to Butuan because of the city's low elevation. Moreover, a significant portion of Butuan is actually below sea level. To add to this, Butuan has historically faced devastating floods that occur every 20 years, and this time interval is only decreasing with every passing year due to things like climate change. We deduce that there are two crucial problems that we must solve. The first, that often gets overlooked, is the fact that a lot of individuals are simply unaware of what to do during a disaster, or even more crucially, how to prepare for one before it even happens. The second is that there is a lack of communication that happens, especially during disasters. A lot of people lack access to emergency services, and those same services simply aren't optimized in terms of where they should be. Good day! We are Team Sigma, here to present Laging Handa, a data-driven emergency app designed to guide you on what to do in the event of a natural disaster. Firstly, we would like to stress that this proposal involves the cooperation of Butuan's LGU and other government departments for the processes of data collection and the curation of certain resources for the app. With this, the app will have two different versions, one for the users and another for the administrators, which are the members of emergency response teams, the city's LGU, government departments, and other professionals that will aid in the management and operation of the app. Now, let's talk about the technology that this app uses to operate. In other words, the back end. Geographic Information Systems, or GIS technology, is used for capturing data and relating it to various geospatial information in Butuan City. With the use of this GIS technology, the app can analyze an area's elevation, identify flood-prone or earthquake-prone areas, provide information on the location and availability of evacuation centers, and so much more. This is made possible with the use of already existing data. So things like hazard maps and vulnerability assessment datasets, which are easily accessible for data sourcing. For the administrator end, this information will be used to aid emergency personnel in their operations and deployment. And for the user end, the information will be used to generate appropriate routes for the user to get them safely to the nearest evacuation center. Dijkstra's algorithm will also be used for these purposes to determine the shortest path for the users to get to the evacuation center, and for the emergency personnel to get to the areas which require immediate response. But even before the disaster takes place, the app, using GIS technology and other data inputted by app administrators, already determines the most disaster-prone areas in the city. The LGU can use this information as a basis for where to station their rescue teams and emergency response teams. Having all of these mechanisms and systems in place makes the application more robust and allows its users to make more informed decisions before, during, and after a natural disaster. Something we have to note here is that the application also becomes more and more robust as more and more people use it, because that means that there are more data points available, especially if all of these data points are scattered throughout the whole city. These people are then able to get urgently needed communications from the government through texts. With all of these considered, the app has several features which ultimately incentivize and encourage more people to install and use it. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about the app itself. Laging Handa is an app that, firstly, gives you reliable information on how to prepare for different natural disasters that Butuan City is prone to, but crucially, in the case where a disaster does happen, the app operates on swathes of data to create an evacuation plan for you while guiding you on proper procedure, as well as contacting those who should be contacted, like authorities and close family members, or even your entire community. Now, let's check out the application's features.
We will be demonstrating the user end part of the application. This is the app's main dashboard. The biggest 6 buttons we have here are the common natural disasters that Butuan City faces. When we tap on one, we get 2 options. The first one gives a straightforward survival guide on what to do in the event of a natural disaster. In this case, an earthquake. As previously mentioned, it would be ideal for government departments, such as NDRRMC, to be involved in the formulation of these survival guides for the app. The user may also select a specific instruction to view more details about it. The second option generates an optimized route for the user to get to the nearest evacuation center. In order to do this, we will be using Dijkstra's algorithm alongside GIS technology. In doing this, route calibration will be very dynamic and can respond and adjust to any obstacles that the user may encounter along the way. Let's explore this feature further. So, let's say that the provided route is obstructed or cannot be followed due to flooding, debris, or any other reason. In this case, the user may tap on this button for a new route to be generated. Now let's see what happens when we select a different natural disaster. We can see that the instructions and information provided in the survival guides are very specific to the type of natural disaster selected. As previously mentioned, it would be recommended to have professionals in this field to be involved in the creation of these resources. This button brings us directly to the map where we can see our recommended route to the nearest evacuation center. Another main function of the app is the Emergency Hotlines tool. Shown here are the important hotlines that the user might need in case of an emergency. This part also shows a list of the user's personal contacts, which they may edit or customize. When we tap on one of the hotlines here, the app leads us directly to a phone call with the selected hotline. Next, the app also has some first aid tutorials. We can search for a specific injury, or we can select one from the given categories. Here we have some steps on how to administer first aid on muscle strain. We would definitely recommend for first aid professionals to be involved in curating the information for this part of the app. If we tap on a certain step, it leads us to a page with more detailed information. Let's move on to our community page. This feature may greatly incentivize and encourage more and more people to use the app. This allows the user to create groups or communities whose members they may alert in the case of an emergency. The user also has the option to call a selected member of the community, as well as to share or request for their location. Next, this button brings us to a map of Butuan City with the markers on evacuation centers. The markers colored red represent evacuation centers that are active, while the ones marked gray represent centers that are either inactive or have full slots already. So selecting one will lead to a page with information about the evacuation center, such as its address, contact information, status, and available services or utilities. The live occupancy and capacity of the evacuation center is also shown over here. This information is made available by the coordination of the LGU and the emergency response teams. Assigned personnel from each evacuation center will have what we call a clicker on their end of the app. The personnel will simply be using their clicker every time someone enters the evacuation compound in order to keep track of how many people enter the evacuation center. Our app will then automatically relay this information to the administrators, who will in turn update the information displayed in the user end of the app and will also alert the LGU. This will also edit the evacuation center's marker based on its availability. We can also look at the map containing evacuation centers that are specific to only one type of natural disaster, in this case flooding. Next, we have the main menu. It contains a couple of general settings, as well as the preparations tool. Selecting it gives us two options. Here, we can browse through all the official disaster-related news relevant to the city or the country. Here, we also have a checklist for the user to prepare their own emergency kit. All the items needed have already been listed down. The user can simply tap on the box here to mark that they've already packed the item for their kit.
That's it for Laging Handa. Thank you for listening to our app demonstration. We are confident that this app will be able to better equip its users, both residents and emergency personnel alike, in the face of natural calamities. Join us in making a safer, more prepared community, one step at a time.